Survivor specialist Phil and Alexa are back, and today we are joined by our second castaway from Survivor Guatemala, Brian Corridan, who I'm absolutely ecstatic to be sitting here talking with Brian. He won most tribe. What was it? It was most tribe
pride.
Yeah, I bleed Yashao blue. I still do.
Still do.
Regrettably, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely ecstatic. Right when Will and I were starting out, before Alexa had even come onto the podcast, Will and I did a one-time player draft, and we said if people who had only played one time, you could pick a season or like pick a tribe with them on it. And Brian, I think you were my first pick, and I got crapped on so hard by Will. He was like, you could have gotten him in like the 5th round. I wasn't going to take him. And I was like, no, this is like one of the best pre-merge players to ever play. And I defended it so hard. And then he said, well, if he was that big of a fan, why did he let everybody know he was such a big fan? I was like, this was season 11. Man.
All right, who's this real fellow? I need to have a talk to him.
He doesn't work here anymore.
Yeah, clearly. Good decision on your part. I deeply resent that. Dalton Ross gave me such crap about this too during the show. He was like, well, if you're such a fan, shouldn't you know to shut your mouth? First of all, Dalton Ross and Will, I was not talking about Survivor the entire time. I'm not a moron. And it wasn't that I was a super fan on the show. It's just that I was a super fan, but I wasn't like talking. I'm not neurotic. I wasn't talking about Survivor 24 hours a day in the middle of the Guatemalan jungle. But I kind of quickly realized I had no place in this tribe because I was like, ooh, I'm not the most athletic one and I'm not the most likable one. What do I do? So once the tribes had switched up, I was just kind of like, well, my value is being able to help you guys navigate what might be happening in the game. So like, that's what I can bring to the table. And yeah, that didn't go well.
Why were you not the most likable? I thought that you were definitely one of the most likable. This is news to me. What's this?
I mean, look, I'm self-aware enough to know that I can't control my eye rolls. Like I can try very hard, but ultimately, someone like Rafe is just very likable because he's so goofy and funny and congenial. And I think I came across sometimes as maybe a little colder and a little perhaps like I didn't really care about any of these people. But I did care about Lydia, which was like the one. And so I think that I was pretty obviously cast as somebody who was strategic because I wasn't a model like Blake and Bobby John. I wasn't an athlete, like Brandon. And or like Gary. So when you see someone like me get cast, you're like, why is this kind of like fairly skinny kid here? What's his deal? So I think particularly people, especially Rafe, immediately said this guy was cast because he's going to be like the devious villain. So I think there was an immediate barrier there to kind of making any inroads with trust because I think my prototype was just inherently untrustworthy. And it was hard to, I think, break out of that.
Yeah, and now what's interesting is like we've seen numerous versions of Brian Corridan play this show again, just not you. But it's funny that now with how much focus is on some of these pre-merge people who go home, these pre-jury people who go home. Mm-hmm. We had Bradley who like has a pretty big following, and Allie Elliott had a pretty big following when she went home.
Right.
It's like Guatemala. I really feel like Guatemala was a really good season where a lot of great players went home just too early.
I totally agree.
Yeah, if it was today's day and age, though, how many of you would we have seen play again? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like imagine a season with Amy O'Hara. Like, 100%. If she could get on Twitter right after she got voted out and tell everybody how she really felt, like, right. She would have played again in season like 15. Like it would have just been
Amy, I think you can play again. You certainly have Brandon. Margaret was a huge character in Guatemala. I mean, the whole premiere basically revolved around Margaret healing these broken men, both like emotionally and physically. And you do have your Brianna, Brooke, Morgan, wonderful people who just got a real shaft in the edit. But I think even Blake, someone like Blake who in the more modern version is like the Drew Christie, right? The kind of cocky guy who goes home early. But we just are this black sheep season. We came at such a weird time in Survivor where it was the only season they had done prior with returning contestants was All Stars. The next one wasn't until season 16, which I guess, that was 4 years later, basically. But in those 4 years, you had people like Suri in Panama come in, and China, which is this like its glut of great contestants in China. So it was just really easy. And I don't think the producers loved the end game of Guatemala. You know, you end the show with people like Cindy and Lydia, who aren't necessarily as big personalities or gamers. So, and then Danny, who's super under the radar. And then Rafe went into Hollywood to do screenwriting. So you're not going to bring Rafe back because of his association with Hollywood and other shows and contracts. So you just kind of don't have the end game people to pull back from Guatemala. And certainly back in those days, you weren't pulling pre-jury people other than Cheyenne and Boston Rob to play again. So after 16, you have heroes and villains at 20. And then that begins like the kind of more modern day era of returning players like every other season. But it's not happening. Like no one from Guatemala will see the light of day. We are the rare Pokemon of the Survivor world for sure.
I just love how you just broke that down for us though. Brian is still a gigantic Survivor fan.
That was incredible. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've never missed it. I mean, I still watch weekly with Eliza. Like, we got our wine and cheese crew. Are you kidding? Survivor's my number one show. It was back then. It was before when I was on the show. I've never lost my love for Survivor. And I can still tell you the order of everyone voted out, every season, twists, turns. I'm like still obsessed. I still like bitterly watch like rocking back and forth that I can't play again. For sure.
Hey, one day. There's going to be like a petition eventually at some point that's going to get somebody from Guatemala back on this show. Somebody is.
It's kind of like a joke at this point.
Yeah, but see now I'm kind of embracing the joke, and I kind of don't want anyone to go back because then we lose that joke. You know?
Yeah,
it's not going to be
me to want me, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. You can't have us. If anyone comes back, it'll be Danny if they do like a winter season or something.
Yeah,
but you know, I'm kind of at this point. I like the cachet of being like this like redheaded stepchild. No offense.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, I know. It's very, very Lauren Rimmer comment of me, but I'm kind of cool with it's almost like a badge of honor. It's kind of like this little joke that we perpetuate, and if it gets taken away from us, what do we have left then? Then we're just like this crappy forgotten season that did have a contestant come back from. So I'm going to kneecap Danny before she can play again.
Poor Danny. You know, she's going to get her second shot to prove herself. Get everything off her shoulders, and you're going to kneecap her. But I think... Oh, go ahead, Alexa.
I was just going to say, so you're still a huge Survivor fan. What's your take on the season right now?
Well, okay. I mean, my take is basically everybody's take. I wish I could come with like some hot take, like this season's secretly awesome. No, I mean, the first 4 episodes were not great, and everyone knew it. And especially coming off the heels of last season. It was so good. David with Goliath, I was just like hungry for more content. I don't, as much as I am as a super fan, I actually don't really end up ever watching the secret scenes online. David vs. Goliath, I was like, give me secret scenes. Like, what did Kara have to say about this? Like, I was searching online for more content from David and Goliath. It was just so much fun. Start to finish, everyone on that cast was just baller. This season, and I don't blame Dan. Like, there's nothing wrong with Aurora or Julia or Gavin at all. But when you spend the first 7 episodes being like, oh, right, and also there's an Aurora and a Gavin and a Julia. Like, Natalie Bolton's arc is epic. You know, just like completely out of nowhere. And then in episode, like, second to last episode, she comes off and wants to, like, rip out someone's jugular.
Yeah,
like, that's an edit I can get behind. Like, yeah, if you're going to Natalie Bolton it, Natalie Bolton it. But if you're just going to be like, I'm kind of quiet, but then, oh, here I am with a confessional every 3 episodes. What do I care? I don't know. And it sucks for them because they're working their asses off on that island for sure. And I know they are, but it's hard to just get invested in them as a viewer, which sucks for them. It's such a disappointment, but yeah.
Especially when they pull the move like they did last week, because that was right. Wardog talked to them, but Julia, Gavin, and Aurora were the ones who flipped. Yeah. And they flipped with Victoria, who's gotten a bigger edit than them. But still, we didn't hear from Victoria last week. We heard from the other 3.
And Victoria's the one I can get behind the most because she seems like she's got the best head on her shoulders. I loved her Aubrey gambit. I loved when I thought she was right when she talked to Julia about we should like wait 1 more episode before pulling this off. I thought she was right. I love that she's just kind of going in there totally emotionless. When Aurora was trying to negotiate, she didn't even try to sugarcoat that. She wasn't even like, oh, Aurora, I really want this for my family or some nonsense like that. She just like, no, nothing. She just stood ahead, like stared straight ahead and didn't even really answer Aurora, which Victoria's cold. I like it.
Yeah. I can get
She
behind
will
it.
rip someone's jugular out.
Yeah, she's the one I'm waiting for. Yeah, 100%.
And it's going to happen. She's already talked about, don't trust me. Like, I'm bad. I'm not, like, trust me. And I think you're 100% right. Because when I look at my power rankings this week, the people I have on the bottom are predominantly comma people. Because you've made this move now. We know Lauren. We know Wentworth. We know Wardog. And right now, Wardog is playing an absolutely fantastic social game that can't believe when you look at his Twitter, but then you look at what he's doing.
Can't believe when you see his name is Wardog.
Yeah.
Mr. Wardog.
Yes, Doctor. I believe that's Dr. Wardog. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. You've seen these people and you know where their heads are at. And I'm having a hard time seeing one of them go home before anybody who flipped or was flipped on. You know, Julie and Ron they're in trouble this week. I mean, Victoria's right. You give up the numbers. It's the whole thing from Token Chains. That's what I was comparing it to. It's, we got the 6-3 numbers. Let's just get rid of Tyson, or let's get rid of Brendan because that's what we need to do. Okay, now let's get rid of Tyson. Okay, now let's get rid of Sierra. Next thing you know, you don't have the numbers anymore.
It's we've seen it multiple times, not just Token Chains. Then you see it the very next season in Samoa with the Galoo team taking down or wanting to take down Fofo, but then not. So they take out Eric Cardona. And then they just completely fall apart, and the Fofo 4 end up in the final 5.
And maybe I'm misremembering, but like Danny was somebody that it was like we should have gotten rid of her.
At least, I mean, they at least tried to chip away at the Yasha minority first. They took out Brandon, they took out Bobby John. Like they at least did take out a couple of the Yasha minority first. But then Danny just ingratiated herself, particularly with Rafe. But I feel like it's more common than not that a team goes down really low in the numbers to the merge, and that majority is just so antsy to pick each other off because they're just sick of each other.
Yeah, we see it all the time. I mean, it happened in Heroes, Healers, Hustlers. There were 6 healers left in the merge.
Right.
And they went boom, 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 boom.
Right.
They all went in a row.
Right.
You know, it's not a pagonging because it wasn't purposeful, really. But
exactly.
But that's
just stupid. It's bad gameplay. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. None of them had any game that season, and like not that they didn't have any game. It's just like none of them
had
knew
no game. That season was horrible. Don't pretend it wasn't.
We love Joe Mena.
There's the take.
Joe Mena's got the place in my heart. You know.
Okay. I mean, Joe Mena. He's from Connecticut, and I'm from Connecticut, so that's like I'll give him that. But he did try. I felt like he was a little bit of a tryhard in the season. However, he was one of only a few people that season who was actually interesting. So I do appreciate Joe. I'll give that to him. That season's endgame with Ben and the Idols was so epically horrific. Not since Colton on One World had I been so frustrated with Survivor.
And what was it with Colton in One World? What
is that a serious question? Is that a question you just asked?
Well, I need this. Can I get the specific moment that just like,
what was it about Colton in One World? What kind of question is that? So actually, Colton and I just like followed each other on Twitter like 2 months ago, and he seems like he's come a long way since One World. So, you know, I'm speaking of Colton then. I don't know Colton now. I've never met Colton. Now he seems much more, empathetic as a human being. Maybe, I don't know. It's Twitter. Who's empathetic on Twitter?
That'd be good.
I mean, let's hope, right? But I mean, God, One World, whether it was the stupid racist stuff with Christina and Alicia, I mean, that's just the kind of stuff that you're just like, this isn't even funny, or there's no like clever hot take on race relations. You're just like literally holding your eyelids back. Like, this isn't funny. And with his getting rid of Bill and the disaster with the maid, my best friend is black, like, except your best friend is a maid in this case. Like, it was exhausting. Colton felt like a real miscast, and then when they brought him back,
that was the rough part.
But they got exactly what they deserve, bring him back. And that's one of those things where I feel like Jeff Probst sometimes gets so excited about dumb stuff that he thinks is exciting, and there's just like a complete lack of psychology behind it. And to bring Colton back, with like him quitting that season, was basically just desserts. They deserve that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe they wanted Caleb more than anything because Caleb was.
Caleb was a good. Character.
Turned out great.
Yeah. But okay. Well, I have to ask One World. Why would you not like Colton? But anyway,
this is more than we've been. I feel you've been doing this podcast so much longer than I have, but I have never talked about One World this much since I've done this podcast.
Even when we do the season rankings, we always make sure to gloss over One World, and we just lump it in with Redemption Island and say these two suck.
Well,
Okay.
correct. See, that we can get behind. I'm with you. Those are the two bottom seasons for me. And I put the Dirty 30 down there. I'm sorry, Tyler. I'm sorry, Max.
I don't like season 30 either. Cannot get into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd throw season 35 down there too.
Wow. So we're getting Brian. I feel like I could sit here and just talk Survivor with you all day.
Yeah, this is amazing.
This is my outlet because no one else in my life ever wants to talk about Survivor. Everyone's like, dude, it was 14 years ago. There have been so many things you've done since then. You have to stop talking about Survivor. And I'm like, no, but this episode was so cool because there was an idol.
This is something I wanted to say though before when we were talking about Guatemala. What's interesting about you is that you kind of still fit into the same archetype they had for you, despite the fact that it was 14 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like Blake could never play Survivor again because Blake's not Golden Boy anymore. He's
I don't know. Maybe he is.
Maybe he is. Okay.
Do a quick Google.
I think that there's this whole, like, if you get like a 23-year-old Blake, he needs to come back and then be 37-year-old, 23-year-old Blake. Like he needs to do the same thing. And somebody like you though, you were 22 the first time you played, but I still think, like, just talking to you right now, I'm like, we would get very similar confessionals from Brian.
I don't think I've changed much in 14 years. I mean, that's embarrassing. Not much has changed from 22 to 36, but for sure.
Well, that's a good, And after speaking to Judd 2 years ago, like Judd would still come out and be, I think he actually like said, like, maybe I do have ADD. It's just not nice to be told you have ADD.
Judd is such a character. So Judd was one of only two people I never met during my time in Guatemala. So I never met Judd and I never met Cindy. I didn't meet them until Cindy. I didn't meet until the finale. Like, other than obviously pregame stuff when you're not talking. And I thought she was like I remember doing the pregame press and I thought Cindy was a college lacrosse player just because she had that like look to her. But I actually think Cindy and Aurora are very similar. But Judd, I ended up meeting because we both live in New York. I live in New York. He lives in Jersey, but works in New York. So I didn't meet Judd until our season. We had been, we came back and I knew that Judd worked at a certain hotel in Manhattan. So I went to the hotel to meet Judd. And I like walked up and was like, "Hi, Judd. I was on the same season as you."
We have
to take that.
He was so cool about it. I mean, it was because all I knew about Judd, keep in mind, I spent my entire pre-jury with Margaret. We got voted out the same night. So, and that night we got voted out. My team was like pretty nice about it. I was blindsided, but at least they were saying nice things to me. Margaret went through like hell and back with Judd, right?
Yeah.
So like all of the psychologist's time was like devoted to Margaret just being, so let's talk you down from this. You feel abused. Margaret was like post-traumatic. Meanwhile, I was like, cool, where are the chips? Yeah. So Margaret was just the entire time kind of railing, rightfully so, from where she was coming from against Judd and just how he put her through such hell. So I didn't know Judd. All I knew of Judd was this blustering blowhard I had seen in challenges. He didn't know people's names. He kept calling Cindy Cynthia. Like, so we didn't know. So we were like, is it Cindy or Cynthia? Because that guy keeps saying Cynthia, but I think Jeff is saying Cindy. So I had this impression. I didn't remember him like really almost getting so frustrated before one challenge because Guatemala was hot and sticky and gross. And before the challenge where we had to kind of reconfigure an archaeologist's tent, we were standing waiting for things to get set up. And this one, at the time, she was just like I guess, I don't know what you call it, but an assistant. Her name was Riley. And actually now Dalton Ross recently did a kind of thing about the marooning and how it works. And she's some sort of real higher up now, 14 years later. But Judd was just really like, Riley, this is so long. This is taking forever. Get me out of water. Blah, 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 blah. And so poor Riley, this like small girl at the time, just was like having to deal with Judd's wrath. So I didn't know much about Judd. And then I finally met him and I was like, oh, this guy's really funny. Like, I really like him. He's entertaining.
There's people who are 12 years old who are probably listening to this podcast right now going, how did people on the same season not know each other? The days before Twitter and Facebook were all the time.
17 swaps.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, yeah, it was bizarre. I remember coming back and I had just finished college when I did Survivor. So when I came back, I was in my first apartment in New York. And I remember talking on the phone with Rafe. And he was like, does your phone have text? And I was like, no, my phone doesn't have text. And he's like, you got to get a phone with text. Stephanie, I text every morning over breakfast. Like, that's how ancient kids 2005 was. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. Well, now that we're
podcasting instead of texting.
It's always crazy to me. We got to get to the power rankings, but it's always crazy to me because when we talk about this type of stuff, it's always hard to put the old seasons into perspective because I've been watching since day one. Alexa, you started season 12, right? It was season 12 was the first one you watched.
I started halfway through Guatemala. I think my first episode ever was when Judd verbally abused Margaret.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my last episode ever.
There you go.
Yeah.
So her intro to Survivor was Brian being voted out, and now we've come full circle.
Full circle. Oh.
But it's always hard to explain in the context of what was happening then. Like Survivor's just so great with like what was happening in America at the time is what was probably happening on the show. And like, it's so hard to explain to somebody who goes back and watches Guatemala now for the first time, who might be like 13 or 14 years old, like why Guatemala is cool. Like it's hard to explain. And it's not just Guatemala, it's Panama, it's Palau, it's all of those seasons. Like we love Vanuatu. Alexa and I both have Vanuatu in our top 5.
Have you talked to Eliza?
We have not. We have not. She'd be down. Well, now we have her coming with the Amazing Race, so we're gonna have.
Yeah, you gotta wait. I'm sure she's on gag order now for the next couple months.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wait till after that. But this is a great time to say it. We're gonna be doing something with the Amazing Race, whether or not we're going to be consistent or not, we'll have to see. But because Brett and Chris, friends of the podcast, which I think is the
you have a very Chris vibe to you, right? Like same very Chris Hammond's look.
Yes, Will. The first time we ever interviewed Chris, it was Will and I. Alexa hadn't joined yet, and Will said that Chris should teach me how to be the good-looking version of me, which is Chris. He was saying so. That's So that was you missed out on Will, Brian. I wish he was.
Yeah, based on the 2 instances you've heard of him, this is why he is no longer with us. He's also very much alive.
Exactly.
But yeah, so because we love Chris, we love Brett, we've had them both on the podcast numerous times. We're going to do something for the Amazing Race once it airs, which it's airing April 17th. We won't be able to do it right after because we're going to be recapping Survivor. That's obviously more important. But then we're definitely going to talk, and I can't wait to watch Liza and Corinne just
that's going to be
great.
So I knew, obviously, I was with Eliza when she got the call for Amazing Race. So I knew, from minute 1, helped her pack the night before. Our friend Brooke, who won season 29 of Amazing Race, she was giving Eliza all this advice on, how to pack, how many pairs of socks you need, blah, blah, blah. So we were and then, every day we're, looking, we're trolling the internet for spoilers. So we were not even remotely going to be surprised by what happened. And I just met Brett for the first time last weekend.
How amazing is Brett?
He's so cool. I mean, Eliza can't say enough good things about him either. But Andrea had a Survivor. Andrea and Meg Malley from Big Brother had a big Survivor event for the Arthritis Foundation in New York last week. So that's where I met Brett. That was fun.
Yeah, Brett. Okay. I love Brett. I've gotten to meet Brett a couple times because whenever the little pre-finale stuff or finale stuff, he's always around.
He's always there.
Yeah, he's definitely he does the circuit.
Yeah, Brett's amazing. Chris is amazing. I've gotten to meet Corinne. Have not met Eliza yet though because I don't really do anything in New York. But
come over here.
Yeah,
you got a good city.
Come our way.
Yeah,
that's the vibe I'm getting. Everybody talks about New York like it's great, and Alexa will tell you my LA love is not high.
Yeah, I love New York. Phil does not love LA.
Listen, hey, that sounds like a complete reason to come to New York. You don't love LA, and we love New York. So
there you go. All right, Brian, I'm going to put you on the spot first because this might be our longest intro out of any of these podcasts. So I want to put you on the spot first. Who's your number 1 for the power rankings?
The safest.
Yes. Who is the safest person this week?
Safest person for the week, I do think, is Kelly from both a strategic and an editing standpoint. I think she's the closest we're getting to a narrator this season, and you don't have a lot of other options for that. Maybe David, maybe Aubrey, who's already been voted out. But again, with these seasons, with these returning contestants, having been on a season with a returning contestant, they're so dominant in the edit, obviously. And I think Kelly is the one guiding the audience along what's happening, plus her idol. Based on the previews, this has to be an idol week, right? I thought last week was going to be an idol week. But this week with Aubrey's eyes bugging out, pulling in Eliza on the jury, it's got to be an idol week. So I think that means Kelly is number 1.
Yeah. I have Lauren 1. I have Lauren 1, Wentworth 2. Alexa, did you just say you have Wentworth?
I switched them. I go Wentworth 1 and Lauren 2. So pretty much same thing for everybody.
Okay. So yeah, we all have the same top 2. And based on that preview, and then Jeff in his EW article said, this is going to be one of the best tribals ever.
Right.
That only means idols because Jeff's not going to say it's the best tribal ever if
because of
it's just a cool blind side.
Yeah, no, Jeff's going to be like, look, a 22-year-old girl pulled a really good move, best one ever. No. Yeah, it's got to be someone played an idol.
How many hundreds of tribal councils on this show?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's the vibe I'm getting too. Now, how many idols are going to get played this week? That's the real question. But what I don't think a lot of people realize, I think people might be expecting Wentworth to have an idol. I don't think anybody on that cast is expecting Lauren to also have an idol. Because last week they were talking about splitting the votes between Wentworth and Lauren. And if that would have been a 4-4-4 vote, Wentworth and Lauren could have both played their idols. And then the person who gets 4 votes, which probably would have ended up just being Eric anyway, goes home. But it's funny that that's who they're looking to split their idols between, or their votes between, because they're actually more worried, I think, that David or Wardog might have an idol.
Right. Well, I mean, history supports them, as we've heard multiple times over the past few seasons about men finding idols. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And David especially.
And I guess what will be interesting this week is to see how the Rick David idol plays out, considering Rick and David look like they're no longer working together and they each have half an idol in their hand. Is that also going to be cool at Tribal Council, or is that just not even going to be a thing?
Well, I feel like that's got to be what happens at Tribal Council. Something happens with that thing.
So how is that much more epic than the time Ty didn't give Scott Pollard the other half of the idol, or the other idol, right? Like
I think. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone like tosses it in the fire. We've seen a half an idol get tossed in the fire.
Dr. Mike, basically.
Yeah.
But then again, maybe Jeff finds it to be better because it's actually played than it's not played. Like the Ty one, we all love because it's not an idol play, and that makes it actually more exciting.
Right.
But maybe Jeff sits there and says, "Ooh, it did somehow manage to work." That makes it the best thing ever. Which would be really cool, I think, if like Lauren and Wentworth both play their idols, and David finds out he's the other person getting votes, and him and Rick somehow bonded, and it's like we also have an idol, and it's like, what is going on here?
I hope so. I mean, this season, the double episode I thought was a really good one with the Aubrey blindside, and then the double tribal, or the combined tribal that sent Wendy home. That was a lot of fun. The merge, I felt like, just took too much time setting up Rick's return, and then Joe's pretty anti-climactic loss. This week was pretty exciting with Julia kind of pulling a move, but I feel like we need something to make the season really great. And that would be maybe well, I mean, I'm not like #1 fan of, Idol Mageddon, that whole Suri horror.
We're not really about that either.
Yeah. So I'm not really advocating necessarily for a bunch of idols and Aurora's extra vote, and someone else found this secret thing where you get to like stab someone in front of their mother. Like,
and then they're voted out.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to like see anything crazy, but I like what was fun about this tribal was it was just regular strategy, right? That's why it was exciting. So if this season is going to be really exciting, I do want to see something fun happen. And if it has to be an idol, I'll take an idol at this point. But I'm a little worried we're about to face like a repeat of the Suri situation where all the votes are negated somehow. Like,
and then Julia goes home.
And then someone random goes home for whatever reason. Exactly.
Yeah, which would be a bummer, because that's a reboot. I think Jeff Probst said he enjoyed that. And like, who wants to watch Suri on her 4th attempt go out that way? Like, if we're watching Suri for a 4th time, I want Suri to either get blindsided or get to the final 3. That's what I want. Not, we ran out of people to vote for. So, Suri, you're automatically out.
Yeah, by default, you go home. Right.
Maybe Suri goes home on Wednesday. That's like gotta be what happens.
They just fly her in for the night and they just vote her out, actually.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. All right, so my number 3, I'm still going Victoria.
That's my number 3.
Yes,
that's your number 3.
This is
perfect. Alexa, did you say same? Is that what you said? All right. Well, somebody else talked about Victoria other than me, because everybody's going to get sick of me talking about Victoria pretty soon.
Ryan, what's your Victoria take?
She's my favorite. Like, the returning contestants are all fine. There's no one who's like not worthy of returning. I mean, I'm not sure Joe was going to bring anything super new to the season that was exciting. Aubrey's always pretty interesting. Kelly's pretty interesting. David's pretty interesting. But, we've been there. We've done that. We've seen that with them. So Victoria, I thought, was really fun in that double episode. And then I was kind of a little bummed we didn't get to see her, given the special that she did vote out Eric. But I think she's the smartest of the newbies. I think she's got the head on her shoulders. She's got the block on her head in that challenge and is paying no attention to Aurora. I think if someone gets blindsided, it's not going to be her yet. Yeah. I think she's positioned herself right so that if someone's going to like take a shot, it's going to be at Ron, maybe. It's going to be a Julia because she's kind of pulling some strings on her side. So I have Victoria third because if someone's going to be collateral damage, I don't think it's her.
Yeah, I totally agree. So like I jumped on this like maybe 5 weeks ago. I was like, Victoria's gonna win the season. And it's funny, like every time we get somebody on, everybody always says the same thing of like, who's that? You know, with Eric and Gavin and Aurora and Julie, it was always kind of like, who is that? You're coming on, obviously, after they just pull a blindside. Right. But everybody knew Victoria. And I was like, all right, so this isn't like, it's not like a hot take. It's just she's not the most exciting, but she's playing such a good game that it's so much fun to watch. Because even last week, she says to Julia, I don't know, it might be a week too early. I think we're almost being shown just that from Victoria because it was a week too early. Right. And if it ends up being 1 week early and now we start to see people go home, but Victoria goes on to win the season, well, it's going to be kind of that moment is an I told you so moment.
Yeah, I would even say I don't know that I agree that Victoria isn't exciting. I think she is. Her whole thing of like, you can't trust me. Like, don't trust me, man. Like, we get personality from her. We have a sense of what she is and who she is and how she wants to play. And there is an element of exciting to her because she is someone who is not so fickle or wishy-washy. She's got a game plan. She's executing a game plan. And she's also not someone who's so bullheaded that she's going to say, absolutely not, we can't do this. It's my way or the highway. So we know that she didn't want to do this, but she was like, all right, I mean, I'm smart enough to know which way the wind's blowing here. So I tried to stop it. I can't. I'm on board.
Yeah. And it's like I guess not exciting is probably the wrong thing to say because I love Victoria. But I guess she's not the
like, Wardog.
Right. She's not dynamic, maybe. Right.
Yes, that's the better word. There you go. She's not going out of her way to make fireworks happen. She's there to win the game. Yeah. And I think Victoria can win this game without a single advantage. How does somebody win like in season 38 without ever having an advantage ever? And that could happen this season. Like she hasn't had an idol, she hasn't had an extra vote handed to her. She hasn't had anything like that. And she could win this game.
Yeah, I'm working my way back. God, we haven't had a winner who hasn't had an advantage in a while. Because Adam had something, right?
Adam found the idol at the end, and then Hannah like spoiled it. And
Did Michelle have any advantages? Oh well, the jury thing. She got to remove a juror.
She would have won though. I think.
Yeah.
Jeremy had an idol.
Yeah, Jeremy definitely had an idol because he played it on Steven.
Yep.
Mike had a ton of idols.
Yeah, Mike. That was Mike's game.
And definitely Natalie did because she saved Jacqueline to send Baylor.
Tony Vlachos definitely.
Tony of course did. Tyson did.
Oh my God.
So I'm saying Cochran. Did Cochran have one?
I mean, Cochran had the advantage of being put in the season with Dawn and a bunch of people who weren't going to vote out Cochran. So let's count that as an advantage.
Yeah. Denise is probably the last person because Denise didn't have an idol.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
That's a long time.
Hers is nice and pure. Like she went to every single.
Denise is amazing. Yeah. Talk about a winner.
But how long? That was how many seasons ago? Like
that was 25. Philippines was 25.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what I'm saying. If Victoria pulls this off, that's like incredible because we are in a day and age where like you get respect by having idols, by making plays with idols, by crazy blindsides. Victoria doesn't look like she's going to get credit for the Eric boot, but it also doesn't look like she's going to get blamed for the Eric boot when the comma people are all sitting on the jury and she's sitting at the final three with two Lessus or something like that.
You know what's so funny, by the way? You did this and they do this on the show. Why is everyone calling them Lessus? They were Manus.
Manu, I know.
They were always Manu. Like then they just became Lessu temporarily. But like on the show, everyone's like, well, the Lessu 5. They're like Manu, and especially because they keep calling themselves comma. Like, well, Victoria and Gavin and Eric were Manus for a hot second. So if you're going to revert back to being less commas, aren't the other people Manu? But
I think it's because Lessu sounds like it's. I think David said it. Like they sound like the loser tribe.
The lesser
man tribe.
Yeah, and it kind of still works. Like there's still less of them. So I think it's just ringing in my head more because like it sounds like loser Lessu. They lost every challenge. Like so. I think that's
association. Just calling the losers. It's just easier. Yeah,
it's easier. It's like our four loser are what do we have? 5 of them. The 5 losers who are left, who I honestly think could be 5 of the final 7. You know, those 5.
I'm hopeful it's not Rick though. I'm not a Rick fan. I don't.
Hot take.
What have you take away last week's episode?
if you take away last week, because obviously last week's episode is the one where he kind of seems a little petulant. SAT word.
Great use of the word petulant.
Oh, I know. I'm such a can't shake off my teaching SAT. Without last week's episode, even so, I felt like Rick was a nice comedic character, but I kind of liked Wardog better from the beginning anyway.
Wardog loves this podcast, so you can keep saying that.
Please don't give Wardog.
He loves us.
Oh,
but
is this like sarcastic? Right?
No,
if I'm gonna toot our own horns here.
He's in the chat right now.
He just blocks everyone left and right, which I think is so amazing. Like, good for him.
Yeah. He's in the chat right now.
He said Wardog is here. So hi.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Wardog.
I love him. I think he's great. I'm totally behind him. I thought his take on Rick was exactly correct. You're playing emotionally. And he was right. It's like, look, yes, we voted you out twice. I get that. I understand we voted you out twice. Those were the right moves at the time for me. Right now, it's not the right move to vote you out. I'm not looking to vote you out. We have a way for you to go farther in this game with us. And I mean, I'm not crazy. I understand Rick's hesitation because, yes, if someone votes you out twice, fool me twice.
Yeah.
Can't fool me again. But I think that it was a poor showing on Rick's part this week for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess like we brought this up to Bryce last week, but when you got blindsided on Yasha, when you got blindsided there, if you had a chance to come back in the game, do you think you would have trusted anybody who voted you out, or do you think you would have had a similar reaction to Rick and just hope that you would be able to keep it together?
I mean, the thing is, oh God, right? Okay.
It's really easy for us to
think of 22-year-old Brian too.
No, but 22-year-old Brian, listen, I mean, you can see on the show, they vote me out. I get up and I shake everyone's hand. Like that's on the edit. I shake their hands. Good game, good game, good game. I was there for a game. I'm not an emotional person, sometimes to my detriment. People were like, I'm breaking up with my boyfriend. I was like, well, he sucks. So, so I think if the opportunity presents, I understood why they voted me out. Like, they didn't vote me out because they hated me. They voted me out because, first of all, on that team, I was definitely the physically weakest. Second of all, I didn't mesh with them. Even at the time, speaking of 2005, like the era, even on screen at the time, I'm like, I'm very blue state. They're very red state. Like, that was a very hot button topic at the time. But yeah, we just were very different people. I'm not religious. They were super religious. I'm not conservative. Several of them were pretty conservative. So voting me out, I'm like, right. I mean, I'm the one who sticks out like a sore thumb here. I didn't think I was getting voted out because I thought we were sending Bobby John home. But yeah, I get it. Had I been brought back into the game, I mean, I really wanted, from the beginning, though, I was never aligned with them anyway. So it's a little different, right? I mean, it's not like, because Rick was aligned with these people to vote out Wendy, to vote out so-and-so. When we voted out,
it was a big love fest voting you out versus how they voted out Rick.
Yeah, and I mean, like when we voted out Brianna and Morgan, it was a matter of for those unanimous votes. It wasn't like a small group of us sticking together. I was really more closely aligned with Lydia and with Jamie. So had I been brought back into the game, I would have been wanting to go back to the people who I more naturally gravitated to anyway, which were Lydia and Jamie. But it wouldn't have been like a vindictive thing against Danny or Gary. They were good people. I liked them. Just they weren't who I would have naturally been aligned with, period.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think like when I'm watching this last week, I'm saying to myself, David's really trying to talk Rick off the ledge here. It's like, look, we've been friends since day one. David didn't vote Rick out. He was shocked Rick went home. So he's obviously trying to get back with Rick.
Right.
How he wasn't able to convince Rick, like, hey, come with us. We have Aurora. You, me, and Aurora are going to take on Wentworth, Wardog, and Lauren. Like, you don't understand. I also was blindsided that night. I'm just not the one who went home. But Rick wanted to hear none of it. And honestly, I'm kind of glad what happened to Rick because hopefully it wakes him up that, like, you might think that you now have the upper hand on these people, but, like, blindsides happen all the time in Survivor. And I think Rick got a little smug last week because it was, I'm going to go join the group of 8. Screw you guys.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you joined before.
Yeah.
Like, you're bad, so did I cut out completely there?
A little bit.
Just yeah. For a sec. A little bit. But I'm just saying, like, he joined the group of 4 and not the group of 8. He was getting a little too confident there. And I'm glad that it kind of bit him. Although now I think he's in a lot of trouble because, man, he's got to. How are Lauren, Wentworth, Wardog, and David ever going to trust Rick? And where else is Rick going to turn?
Yeah, I think there are basically 2 people who are rudderless. And Rick is one of them. Where they're just really nowhere. No one wants them other than just for the convenience of opportunity at the given time. And Rick's the one, and I think Aurora is the other.
Yeah, and I think I have more faith in Aurora sticking around just because Aurora doesn't have the storyline of I won at Extinction Island.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that makes Rick a little bit scarier because if he does get to the end, you might say, wait a second, here's a guy who won his way back. You know, he was able to navigate this after being voted out once. Aurora doesn't really have much of a story at all right now, aside from the fact that when Lauren's like passed out, she's like, somebody help.
Which I loved, by the way. I was fully in support of that. Yeah, of course. First of all, Jeff didn't call the challenge. Second of all, she's been standing up there for 25 minutes on her tiptoes. Her calves are probably burning. Like, listen, the woman fainted. I can't look and turn my head because I got a brick on it. Jeff didn't call the challenge. All indications are the woman's fine. She just passed out. That happens. There's a doctor on site. I got shit to do right now. So, Victoria, what's that?
I got challenges to win.
Yeah, so no one called the challenge. The challenge was still on. Fine.
I
negotiate all you want.
I think everybody overreacted so bad on that bench.
Well, I'm wondering how many of those people actually did, because the only one we actually saw reacting was Julie. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if we're just saying, God, they're all saying like, God, it was so horrible of Aurora, or if it was just Julie, who also last week took this indignant approach toward voting Rick out again. I wonder if
Julie had a quietly rough episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, her episode was like obviously not as like loud as Rick's. Right. But I think you're right. Like Julie was the one who only has like a vocal reaction to it. I think everyone else is more just like, what the hell is going on? Like with the entire situation.
Mm-hmm.
We hear a lot of people agree with Julie though, where I think she says this isn't the time or place. And I think David said it really isn't, and somebody else says it's not, and like there was something else. Like there was like a couple people who chimed in, but maybe they were just trying to do it to like calm Julie down because maybe Julie has more relationship with
I kind of, because I rewatched it today. I was like, wait, was it really like this outrage or was it really Julie? And the one we get the caption from, of course, is Julie, where Julie's just like, this isn't the time. I was like, okay, well, easy for you to say sitting on a bench in no danger of being voted out and your calves aren't burning. Like, of course.
And you haven't fainted.
And you haven't fainted. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on to our number 4 real quick, I just wanted to look. There's a comment here from Jace Phipp. He said, could you imagine a Lydia, Brian, Jamie final 3?
Oh, I wish. Can you imagine? We were so different. That was like the fun thing about it. I had never met anybody like Jamie. Someone recently on Reddit, bless Reddit, someone recently posted like underrated GIF. And it was when Bobby, John, and Jamie are basically like dog fighting at that boulder challenge.
The best.
And then so it's them just like chest bumping, and then the camera pans straight from them, like literally barking at each other. And it just pans over to me and Gary, and our faces are just not even registering what's happening. We're just staring. Like, Gary was in the NFL. Like, he's an actual athlete, and he's looking at this like, what is happening? And of course, me, having never played a professional sport in my life, professional or even high school sport, I'm just like, is this what happens? Like,
is this sports?
Are we sports balling? Like, what are they doing?
That is the most confusing, obscene thing I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
Try watching in person. You're just like, I'm sorry. What are you two idiots doing? But I loved Jamie. He's a brother. He'll always be a brother. He's awesome. He's so funny and just so random.
Yeah. I that's one of my favorite moments. I love Jamie versus Bobby John. Great for the show.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my number 4. Speaking of barking, I got Wardog.
Oh, great transition.
Look at you, smooth. This isn't your first time transitioning. Good for you.
I was so happy that just happened. All right. I got Wardog. So Wardog's going to be pissed at me because I had him at number 1 last week after he complained that I put him at number 9 the week before. Mm-hmm. He hates when you move him down. He was MVP last week overwhelmingly.
For sure.
He got the most votes by far. Mm-hmm. I move him down a couple spots here, but I don't move him down too far because Lauren and Wentworth have idols. Victoria is Victoria. Wardog's playing a great game right now. And I think that if they do, like if Kama somehow is able to get back together, if they're able to pull Rick back in and sort everything out, which I don't think they're going to be able to do because Aurora is not going to want to hear it.
Right.
But I do think that if somehow they were able to pull this together, they're voting out David. They're not voting out Wardog because Wardog convinced Julia, Gavin, Aurora, like hear me out here. This is what you should be doing.
Mhm.
And if he's able to do that, he must have made some sort of pitch to them that sounded really good, because Lauren and Wentworth also didn't play their idols. So nobody's gunning for Wardog this week.
Mhm.
And for everybody who might have thought like Wardog is going to be like insanely aggressive, he's going to go home early.
Mhm.
We might be looking at a man who's sitting in our finale, not necessarily in our final three, but I think this is a man who's going to make our finale at this point.
Okay.
He just, it seems like he's just playing too good of a social game to get taken out now. Nobody hates the Wardog.
Okay. I don't have Wardog quite as high as you do, not because I don't like him, but because I have less confidence that he won't be in the crosshairs.
Mhm.
But you know, his whole move to convince Julia and Gavin raises the awareness of him as a social player, because he does have that golden tongue to be able to kind of convince people. Not even convince so much as very cleverly open their eyes, lead them to their own conviction, which is a far more effective tool than just trying to persuade somebody.
Mhm.
And his ability to do that should raise an eyebrow or two if you are Julia or Gavin. Although he noted in his confessional, I'm reaching out to the younger members, which is smart because younger often means more impressionable, although Victoria would be a good counter argument to that. And I mean, obviously I played the game when I was 22, so this is no dig on younger people, but you know, if Julia, who seems a bit astute, although she's had a couple confessionals now where people point out things that are really obvious to her and she's like, wow, I guess he's right. Like Joe saying, you know, you might be a threat, and Wardog saying they might be teaming up on you. So I wish Julia were a bit more ahead of the game rather than reacting to the game. But maybe that did put Wardog on some people's radars. So I don't have him at number 4. I have Gavin at number 4 for the same reason I had Victoria at number 3, which is I just think if a bomb is going off, Gavin's not the one getting hit. No one cares about Gavin, right? Julia is the one trying to kind of make some moves. Ron, Julie's on the outs. David and Wardog are bigger personalities without idols. Who cares about Gavin? He's the Brett of this season. Like, not Brett LaBelle, Brett
Klauser.
Oh God, thank you, Klauser. Good job.
I got your back.
Thank you.
Remember that epic buildup for that hero versus villain final challenge? Remember that? Remember how much they built him up as a hero to go against the all-time villain? Oh wait, they didn't do that at all.
In 19, yeah. Brett. Huh. Yeah, I feel like Gavin's a Brett.
What he's up to.
Yeah, we could have had an amazing hero versus villain. You know, could
they're actually pretty similar because Gavin is like sneakily, well, I guess not sneakily anymore, but like super athletic. And
yeah. Gavin looks like he's totally fit.
Yeah, and I guess like the reason I have Gavin at 5, and not to jump too far ahead of Alexa here, but I have Gavin at 5 because I don't think anybody's gunning for Gavin. It's just like even though Wardog doesn't have an idol. Everybody is so set on getting rid of Wentworth, and they talk about getting rid of Lauren. I think they're more worried about the two of them than Wardog. I think they know Wardog's game, and I think Wardog is doing a better job of bridging a gap than Wentworth or Lauren are. So if they're going to try to put the crosshairs on Wardog, it's going to be a lot harder to do, I think, right now, because I think Wardog has enough people in like his little army to kind of come back to him and tell him, hey, you know, Julia might have voted with you last time, but she's trying to come for you now, because Julia and Aurora aren't that tight. So if Julia were to say something to Aurora, I think Aurora would go back to Wardog and say, this is what's happening.
Yeah, Wardog is such a person. Actually, I think what you said that I totally agree with is Kelly and Lauren appear to be making no inroads or attempts at inroads whatsoever with Kama. And they just seem basically like a pair of people who are sort of over it and don't want to deal with these other people anymore, and have just been so depleted of mental energy and emotional energy that their ability to get further in the game is going to rest more for them upon their ability to dodge votes rather than make changes to the vote. They had nothing to do with the Eric vote. That was a lucky break that they were able to kind of latch onto. But they're not the one making the inroads. Wardog is, which again makes him more dangerous if you are a Ron, a Julie who somehow regains power.
Yeah.
Kelly and Lauren seem to have kind of all but thrown up their arms saying, whatever happens, happens. We have idols. Who knows? But we don't like you and we're not going to play with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Alexa, who's your 4?
Well, I go Gavin at 4 and Wardog at 5, so this already kind of works. But I'm with you on Gavin. This isn't going to look like his move because it wasn't really his move. People are going to the Julie and Ron, who are super scorned, are going to go to Julia because she is the comma who is the face of this. Victoria can say, I didn't really want to be a part of this. Gavin, I think, has such a docile air about him that people are going to like still inherently trust him, even though he just,
and that twang, he's got the JT twang.
Yeah, he's Gavin's gonna be completely fine. And Wardog, like you said, he's making inroads. Kelly and Lauren are not with that group. And at this point, I don't really know where the chips are gonna fall after this, but Wardog has a relationship with Julia, now he has a relationship with Victoria, and he has a relationship with Gavin. That's three more people who are willing to vote with him now.
Yeah. And I think Lauren and Wentworth might end up kicking themselves at the end of the season if they sit at final 3 and lose to somebody, because they are both playing. They both could play great games. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they're playing bad games. I think they're both playing pretty good games. For as bad as it could have gone for them, they lost like every challenge, and they have idols. They're still going to have so many times to make fireworks happen because they have the 2 idols. But I don't think they're making the relationships necessary to get this season 8 votes. Right at the final tribal, or I guess you need 7 votes at the end this time. 7 to 6 would probably do it. But they're not doing enough.
It seems a little bit like Kelly's MO. As much as I enjoy watching Kelly Wentworth, and I'm a Kelly Wentworth fan, but when you kind of stop and look at the actual edit that we've been given, at least, she's not somebody who makes social relationships. I mean, she went pre-jury in San Juan del Sur. And then in, obviously, Cambodia, she was constantly on the bottom and people didn't want to play with her and were constantly trying to get her out. And then here, again, despite her staying power, her impressive staying power, most of that hinges upon other people imploding or her own idol wins. Yeah, she's not someone who people are like, I really like Kelly Wentworth and I want to play with her and she's in my alliance and this is a tight thing and Kelly Wentworth's an integral cog in this system. She's always like fighting upstream more.
And she's like that whole, like, I don't even know if this is still a real thing, but it's the whole, would you rather have 1 great friend or 10 okay friends? You know what I mean? And like, she's one of those people who wants 1 great friend. She doesn't want 10 okay friends. And I think her and Aubrey kind of play similar games where like they get in close with people and they're super loyal to them, but they kind of turn the blinders on to the people who aren't in their alliance. And we've seen that happen numerous times now. And I'm surprised that she hasn't changed that, but I think a lot of that might have to be the fan reaction has been great to her. I'm sure that the people she is close with on her seasons love her. And then I think also she hasn't gotten to a final 3 to lose like Amanda Kimmel did, to realize like, damn, I got to do something different in my game or I'm going to lose to people who I might have played a better game then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet we all have her at number 1, or 2 of us have her at number 1.
And I have her at number 2. So right. Like, but if you're okay, so we'll put you on the spot here. Who do you think is going to win this season?
I mean, if you ask me this question right now, which you are, Victoria.
Yeah. And that's what I think too. And who, out of curiosity, we haven't asked anybody else this, who do you think would sit with her at final 3? Like if you had to think about the way this game is going, who do you see being, you know, maybe throw 3 names out there as possibilities to sit next to Victoria?
I don't see, I'm looking at my list of people. The only man I see making it to the end is David. I think Wardog gets clipped at some point.
I think it is too.
I think he gets clipped. I can see David at the end. I can see Kelly and Lauren at the end.
I don't see Ron or Rick making it.
I don't see Ron or Rick. Julie, maybe. I don't see Aurora making it. And Gavin, I just like, who cares? I don't know. Who cares? Does Gavin make the end? If he does, he's like the 4th one in the fire making challenge. I don't care. So Kelly, Lauren, David, Julie, those are the options I think we got. I think Julie gets clipped. She's going to get bit, I think, somewhere.
And this is kind of what I was thinking too, is like Victoria, Wentworth, Lauren. If that's your final 3, which the way it's shaping up right now, you have so many idols with Lauren and Wentworth, and Victoria's getting the only real winners kind of edit.
Not to mention a person returning from Extinction too.
Oh, that's true too.
Right.
Whoever that might be. So we got to talk about that too. But if, like, let's say that is the final 3, I think that this could be a situation where Lauren and Wentworth go, damn, we should have made better relationships with a couple people, because they might, whoever gets second in that situation might only lose by 1 or 2 votes and say, why didn't I just be a little bit nicer to Ron? Or why didn't I just be a little bit nicer to Julie?
It's a Russell situation, except they're not jerks. They just aren't making the proper social negotiations to get people to be like, you know what, I want you to win. Like, I like you. I want you to win. So,
Yeah. Who's your number 5 here, Brian? We haven't
actually my number 5, and I'm wondering if I made a mistake in this. Having talked it through with you guys, my number 5 was Julia. I had 3, 4, 5, Gavin, Victoria, Julia, because I think that it's too soon for one of them to go. But probably lower for Julia. But coming into this, I had Julia at 5.
Yeah, I have Julia at 6, but mainly because I don't know where else to put her. So like we've been one off of each other the entire time here, but I just don't know where else she would go because we've seen a couple episodes in a row. She had 4 episodes where she didn't have a confessional, and we really didn't hear from her. Right. Now we've had 4 episodes in a row where we've heard from her, or I guess 3 episodes, whatever it is.
The double, sure.
Yeah, the double, whatever. But so we've had some time with Julia. I don't feel like though we're getting set up for her to get cut at the knees, and I think that she's still going to stick around because I think if Lauren and Wentworth know everybody's coming for them, I think they gun for Ron or Julie. I don't think they gun for Julia because Julia did just vote with them, and they might be holding out hope that like maybe we can work with Julia at some point. We're never going to work with Ron or Julie.
The one hesitation is in the preview on the next time on Survivor. Someone did throw out Julia's name, and she has that confessional that says they're trying to bamboozle us.
Oh, I completely missed that.
Yeah, that's on the next time. She's using that old Richard Hatch bamboozled.
Bamboozling. Yeah, I don't know what to do with her because she's not like she's not jarring. She's like quite the opposite. Like she is someone kind of like Gavin, where she'll be able to like fit in with anybody, I think, pretty easily. But this is going to look like her move, so that puts a target on her back because Ron and Julie, whether they have all the power or no power, they're going to be going for her.
Right.
So that's why I don't know where to put her either. Yeah. I originally had her at 5, and now I have her a bit lower, but mostly because there was an open spot there and I put her there.
Who was your 5?
My 5 was Wardog.
Wardog, right, okay.
Yeah, and when I look at the people I have below, I got Rick, Julie, David, Ron, Aurora. Those are the people I have below. They do seem like they should go home before Julia. Or at least like maybe not David. Maybe David's gonna make the finale, like you were just saying, but it's still David. So I have a hard time putting David anywhere near my top 5. So like I just feel like Julia, like she's not as expendable as Aurora. She's way more in with the majority, it seems, right now than Rick, Julie, or Ron are, and she's not David.
Right.
So I think 6 or 5 is a really good spot for somebody like Julia, at least this week, but she could get 10th place in this game.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So everyone wants to go next with their number 6.
That was Wardog, and you guys have already ranked your Wardog. So my Wardog, I was 6 with Wardog for the reasons you've articulated. Yeah. Basically. And I like him. I think he brings a lot to the season. I'm enjoying him. I think he plays well. He's got a good head on shoulders, and he's in the chat, so I'm saying nice things.
What do you think about his Twitter game?
So I don't follow him on Twitter. I tend not to follow people until I like really know them.
She might have blocked you. That's probably what happened.
I mean, honestly. But I mean, I'm popcorning it on the sidelines. I'm loving it. Every time someone new gets blocked, it's fantastic. This is great. I'm living for the off-season drama just as much as the on-season.
I had he said that he was blocking us last week, and I knew it was a joke, but then I also got scared. I was like, wait, what if he really does?
What if he did? What if he did?
I think like 40 followers from I'm sure like our Survivor Twitter handle did too, but Wardog, you can tweet about me more because my personal brand is just flying through the roof.
Amazing.
Blocked by Wardog. I mean, that's
got to be in like the bio.
Hashtag blocked by Wardog. Yeah.
Alexa, who's your number 6?
My number 6 is David, which I guess puts him in the lower half, but I think David's gonna be fine. I think the only person who is even remotely feuding with or thinking about David is Rick, who has negative like clout right now.
Correct, yeah.
So David has done such a good job of not seeming like a returning player. And the whole anti-returnees thing is probably going to die down for a little bit because the Ron and Julie like crew doesn't really exist anymore. So I think David's going to be fine. I think if he wants to get rid of Rick, I think everyone will be able to get behind that really easily. Or if he can quell Rick, then he's got his guy back. So I think David's in a great spot.
Is quell still an SAT word, Brian?
Yeah, they deleted vocab, so I just like live for these old words that are no longer on the SAT that I can just drop in casual conversation to seem obnoxious.
What do you?
There you go, Phil.
Oh, I'm lost. I'm lost. I was just saying they got rid of vocab. I thought that was the whole SAT.
Yeah, they changed it. I mean, I know everyone's tuning in to find out about the SAT, so just a quick recap of that. Yeah, in 2016, they deleted the sentence completions, and so now there's no more like fill in the blank with a hard SAT word.
That was the only SAT section I was good at.
Yeah, it was a really easy place to tutor kids for too, because you just teach them a bunch of words, but that's gone.
Oh my gosh! So now, what is the SAT now? Like,
it's passages, it's editing grammar, and it's math. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a bummer.
Tune in next week to see how we all did on our SAT.
Yeah, exactly. Homework assignment, everyone. Google an SAT, take it. We'll discuss next week.
I'm going to be honest too. Since we're on this podcast with Brian, I don't want to announce my SAT score because I'm sure Brian's blows us out of the water. So we we don't need to compare SAT scores.
I mean, you brought it up. So.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that here. Where'd you go again? Did you go to Penn or was it?
I went to Columbia.
Columbia. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that says everything you need to know. Just know he got a better SAT score than me. It doesn't matter how much. All right, Alexa, my 7 is David. So I'm just like, every time one of you say something, I just have them in the spot after. But
yeah, actually my 7 is David too. So we were tied there.
Yeah. Well, maybe you talk David then, because
David's great. I like David. I think he adds a lot to the show because he is a storyteller by nature. Like that's literally his job. So just his ability to kind of speak and to think about what's happening in the bigger picture. I wonder sometimes if it goes through the mind of a screenwriter during the game to kind of think about this show as a movie and how much of it ends up affecting your decision making because you want to be telling a good story with his fake idol in Millennials Gen X, and where the strategy and the story dovetails, I think, is where David thrives because it's both the ability to tell a story and further his own game. And I thought the whole dynamic between him and Rick was fascinating. Just this mutual breakup of two allies who no longer could see eye to eye on the path moving forward. That's such a bizarre thing to see in Survivor, where it's not a blindside, it's not a betrayal, it's not behind your back situation. It's just, we have different plans and they're incompatible. So good day to you, sir. I will be holding half of your idol. Love it. Love it.
And it's so unique and I love it. And I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with this idol. Because it looks like from the preview that we're going to get more of it this week.
I think so.
Nobody can give up their half of the idol, though. David can't give his half of the idol to Rick, and Rick can't give his half of the idol to David.
So then there's no idol, right? Then no one has an idol. It's Lauren, Rimmer, and Mike.
Yeah, and it's really, oh God, it's so weird to see it happen this way because, when this idol was originally put into Rick's bag, people were so mad that he was handed an idol, but this is creating a really cool dynamic between two people who should be able to use this no problem together, and now they're not going to.
Speaking of weird things that happened with the idol and Rick, do we know for a fact I don't know if there have been any confirming interviews. Do we know if Aubrey knew that Rick gave her the extra vote that she never used?
I have to assume they talked about it.
You would think, right? Because even if Aubrey doesn't want to bring it up because she doesn't know, but they're living together on Extinction Island, don't you think at some point in the boredom that has got to exist on this godforsaken rock, that Rick is going to say at one point, psst, I gave you that idol, by the way, or the vote.
What the hell are you doing here?
Yeah, what are you doing here? You didn't use that vote. I know you had an extra vote. How did this happen? And then so when Aubrey gets an extra vote, she doesn't give it to Rick, is the interesting thing.
Gives it to Aurora.
She gives it to Aurora, with whom she was obviously aligned with Joe, right? But seems a little like, there was no tit for tat situation with you returning the vote to Rick. That's interesting.
And it also, Aurora thought that it was Joe who gave her the extra vote. So maybe Rick
she
never
said like Joe or Aubrey or whoever it is. Her first name was Joe, but she does mention Aubrey too. But of course she has no idea who it is exactly. But she somehow knew it was someone from Extinction, which is interesting. How does she know that, I guess? Because who else is it going to be, I suppose?
Yeah, I guess who else? Yeah, because now there's no other tribe to be getting it from.
Right, you're not going to get it from someone in your team and your tribe.
But I think that's weird. And like that, if Rick didn't tell Aubrey that he did that, bad move on Rick's part. Because if Rick's now back in the game for this final 3, like Aubrey could be an easy shoe-in vote for you because she doesn't seem to like anybody else out there, and you gave her a vote.
Right.
Or maybe Aubrey and Rick just didn't get along. Like, who knows?
That's possible. Maybe he gave it to her, and then they met on Extinction. She's like, screw this guy. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's I didn't even think about that point though.
Oh,
Brian,
well, you were welcome.
Alexa, who's your 7?
My 7 is Aurora, and I think Aurora is going to be fine. But now that we're talking so much about collateral damage after which is obviously not what Aurora is. I'm sure she's wonderful. I'm kind of freaked out putting her there because this tribal is going to be like a hot mess. And just from an edit perspective, it's her or Julia who I think would get hit with like the collateral damage edit. But Aurora doesn't have a best friend, which always that's Kelly's thing. Aurora has no one with her right now. Wow. And she voted with the majority, which is great. But I still don't. Do we know who talked to her? Do we know who informed her that was happening? I don't think we do.
No. So, I feel like we got a lot left out of this episode, actually.
Yeah, there was a lot missing. But I don't know. I feel like they'll only go back to her if they need her vote again. Mm-hmm. And so I think she'll be okay because I don't have her at the bottom, but I am still pretty nervous for her.
Yeah, Aurora's my 8 for that exact reason.
Hey,
I think
me too.
Yeah, hey, look at that. If you need to if there's a situation where idols are played and now suddenly no one can go and they can't come to consensus, it's just really easy to everyone turn to Aurora and be like, well, how about her? No one's with her. So can we all just agree on her for tonight? And that I could see happening with Aurora just having no one in her corner and everyone just needing someone to go home. And that's just an easy consensus when you have a bunch of sub-alliances who can't agree. Just fine, point the finger at the one who no one has anything to do with. Let's just deal with this for now. Tomorrow's a new day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, being Aurora has to suck on this season because you are just in no man's land. And she's been in no man's land the entire season.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to suck so bad because, I mean, she couldn't rally the troops if she wanted to. She couldn't even pretend that she had 2 people on her side because it's just so clear she doesn't. Right. And, unfortunately for Aurora, I kind of see her as like an Edna from back in
South Pacific. Talk about another bad season. Sorry, Sophie, whom I love. But
So Brian loves South Pacific, Extinction Island.
Yeah, I'm going to binge them later tonight for fun.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Edna never did anything that season. She wasn't in with her group, but she couldn't flip to the other side to make anything happen there. She couldn't even pretend that she had allies within her group.
Coach, she was like a little lackey for Coach. So at least someone wanted her around for that reason. Aurora's no one's lackey.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think Edna was she 7th or was she 6th? Whatever Cochran went, she went right after.
Yeah, Cochran was 7th because they did boot him as soon as they were done with him.
Yeah, so then Edna was 6th. And that's exactly what Aurora is here. She's going to be 6th. When everybody's done with Aurora, Aurora goes home. She's got no pull right now at all. And you saw last week, she's a fighter. There's no way she's going down without a fight.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I remember in the sorry, Phil, I think you got kind of glitchy for a second.
Oh, that's fine. I'm glitchy.
In the preseason and based on because I follow her on all social media, she is awesome. She has this really loud, awesome, forthright personality that has not even remotely been shown this season. So that must suck too, that she is just shown as so one-dimensional and just being Joe's person, and that wasn't even really a thing. So that also kind of sucks too.
Yeah, she seems pretty sarcastic, which I appreciate. I think she's got a real edge to her, which is awesome. But we're not getting that, as you say. Yeah. On the show.
Yeah. I think after last week, I'm hoping that now we're going to get even 11 people. We're going to know all these 11 people by the time they all go home. But up until last week, we didn't know Aurora, Julia, or Gavin really.
Yeah, we certainly made strides this week. And hopefully that is a train that continues this week in terms of just fleshing out some of these people we're meant to care about.
Yeah, because last week we should have been standing up and cheering when Julia, Gavin, and Aurora were getting ready to blindside. Not that we don't like Eric, but just that they're going to make this move on this comma, evil.
By the way, we should have cared more about Eric too, because when he went home, it was kind of okay, well, now we've removed a number, as opposed to oh, there goes Eric, a person I had feelings about one way or the other.
Yeah, the firefighter.
Even now, sort of. He's got a tattoo, I guess, of some sort. Yeah,
I agree. That was the biggest one. When we had John Carroll on, we had told him we had listed out everybody as we were going beforehand. And he was like, oh yeah, I remember this one. I remember that one. And he would be he would do the whole who's that? And we didn't even say Eric before we went live. And it was bad because it was.
Because then live, you're
Like the firefighter.
with him there, but then he was just like,
Mhm.
not. It was so
Not to
weird.
mention-
So very, very strange.
And the
editing.
first couple of weeks, it's like Eric and Chris were basically interchangeable. Like, which one's the Eric, which one's the
Yeah.
Chris? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
now they're both
like
on-
6'10".
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Brian, so before we close these power rankings out, and before Alexa even gets to do number 8, Extinction Island as a whole, how do you feel about it? Who's coming back?
All right. So
You have the floor.
all right. So Extinction Island, when this theme was announced, right off the bat, it just felt so contrived to keep Joe in the game. Right,
Mhm.
it's no accident that Redemption Island gets introduced in Russell and Rob's season. It gets used again on Coach and Ozzy season. It gets used its third time on the Blood versus Water season with Tyson and everybody. So, like, obviously, this is only, unless I'm forgetting some season, these sort of purgatory islands have only ever existed on returning seasons to make sure that no returning contestant goes home too early. And it seems pretty transparently the reason for this. So when you hear that Joe is coming back and there's this Extinction Island set up with a challenge to return, you're like, well, this is just do your stupid America's favorite and just give Rupert and Joe the $1 million check. Like, this is a waste of everybody's time. What it has done for us is it has brought us the glory that is Reem. That's what Extinction has done for us, and glory be to it. Listen, she has no business in the game, so get her. We've talked actually at the viewings with Eliza and our friend Joe. Reem seems very cut from the Sue Hawk cloth.
Mhm.
But the thing is, Sue Hawk is Survivor 2000.
Mhm.
There is no Sue Hawk in the modern day Survivor. You're not just an abrasive person who gets far in the game unless you are Philip Shepard.
Mhm.
You know, so this idea of this kind of very abrasive, rough and tumble, unsensitive person who's not strategic or social in any way doesn't have a place in modern Survivor. So going out first is right, but now we just get the wonder that is Reem's bitterness just stewing on Extinction Island, which is what we need from a person like Reem. Like, that's why you cast a Reem, for the bitterness and stewing, but not to muck up the works of actual gameplay. So it's perfect. They did it for Joe. They got it for Reem. Good on them. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you look at Reem, like, I think Eric came in this time and she was like, don't go laughing or making jokes or something. And it's just like my
don't
God.
get excited.
Even
Don't
poor
get
Eric.
excited. Don't get your hopes up. Yeah.
Yeah, even
Thank
poor
you,
Eric
Reem.
can't catch a break. Like, what did he do to Reem?
They don't even know each other.
I know.
Who's coming back? You would think logically it would be Joe, because obviously challenges, but God, we're just constantly hearing from Aubrey. And for someone who gets voted out in the fifth tribal council, she had so much screen time leading up to that and since that I have a hard time imagining there's no payoff to the Aubrey story. And I know we had to see her this week because she found the advantage in the practice, but we're hearing from Aubrey left, right, and center. So what's the point? You don't hear anything from Chris. Cool, Chris comes back. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, you might as well have Gavin come back and he's still in the game. Like,
Hey, it can still be somebody who's in the game, and that's personally what I think is going to end up happening.
maybe.
I would not be surprised if one of these bigger personalities that we have on this, even maybe Wardog. Yeah, maybe. I don't think Rom would necessarily win a challenge, but Gavin maybe could do it. There's certain people though. I feel like you have Joe, you have Chris, and you have Eric all on Extinction Island. And this was a great move by, I forget exactly who said it, but somebody said we want to get the biggest challenge threats out there as soon as possible.
Right, deplete them.
Yeah, and they have to compete against each other. And if you somehow end up there, you're getting the worst version of them anyway.
Right.
Only one of them can come back. And I really agree with you. I don't think it's going to be Joey Amazing because
his edit's been horrible.
It's been horrible, and it would just make too much sense.
Yeah.
It would just
I
make
don't
too much
think he anticipated that. That is no bueno for Joey Amazing.
Yeah, his edit's been horrible. Reem is not coming back. I can say that with 197% confidence. But
150% to 200%.
Yeah.
Remember Ted Rogers in Thailand?
Oh God, Thailand. There's a Thailand reference.
What a reference.
How do you feel about Thailand, Brian?
Do you know what Thailand's not great, but it had its moments. I mean, Rob with the 2Bs, bro, and like crying, and then they vote him off. Cheyenne was a character. Brian was a really compelling winner for the time. But yeah, that end game was just like a bunch of old fogey, dreary, miserable people. Helen and Jan and Ted and Clay and Brian. And Jake was nice, but I mean, boring. End game, not great, but it had its moments. So I don't like it. I dislike it less than other people dislike it.
7th place on that season. Who is it?
7th place was Penny Ramsey from Plano, Texas.
There you go.
Wow.
That's what I need to know, because I always love like name dropping Penny as that's the survivor who like I will just forget exists. Like who is like I can't tell you one thing Penny did on that season other than be aligned with the group that gets pagoned.
Yeah, that for me is Jerry Sims from Token Sheens. Like I just never remember him.
Yeah, no, I could see that too. But at least like Jerry Sims went out 3rd,
right?
Instead
Penny
of
was 7th place.
Yeah, like Penny made it through the fake merge, the real merge, wasn't even the first boot after the real merge, and I still sit there and go, "Who the hell
is that?"
Fair. All right, I had to make sure you knew because you only went up to 6th place. But yes, Thailand is in there. Also, knowing where she's from, that's next level.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Alexa, who's your number 8?
My number 8 is Julia. Okay. And I don't really know why I have her so low, because I think, like I said earlier, she's the face of this, but I don't really think anyone's going to be like so off put by her that she has to go. I view this more as this travel's going to be such a hot mess. Yeah. And she's going to be the one to get out.
Fair. Collateral.
Yeah. She was just so, and I hate like being super edit oriented, but she just did not exist for so much of this game.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense if she makes to the finale. That just seems, I don't know.
Yeah, she's got to be dumped. Like, they're the people who I feel like get caught in those mid-merge double episodes that they always do. And I feel like that's where we might lose a Juliana Gavin.
Yeah. And I feel like that has to be coming soon.
Yeah, that's often around like 9 and 8, right? Like that area roughly, give or take.
Yeah. Are they going to do that twice this season?
I think they'll do an actual like 1 hour double boot. I think that's what we're
doing. Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, because also this season they had, well, I guess they started with 18 people instead of 20. But with someone coming back into the game, you have to remove a person.
Pretty much makes it 20. Yeah.
Right. Well, or at least 19. Yeah, with 2 people coming back. Right. It's 20 people. Right.
Yeah. So I think it's coming. It won't be this week. Probably not next week. But yeah, I think around like 9, 8, 7. I think Will Wall and Sunday went 8, 7, something like that.
And see, they're like classic double boots. Like Will Wall and Sunday, you're right. They're gone in a double boot at some point.
Yeah. We've had them on numerous podcasts too. And you're just like,
both of them? I don't know them. I haven't met them.
Oh, you should definitely meet both of them. They're both amazing. Yeah. And it's just so funny. Like when you talk to them, you're like, these two, like if they weren't in the double boot episode, we would have probably heard so much more from them. Because like they are very interesting people. They are so much fun to have on the podcast. And you're just like, still, I mean, even Brett was under-edited in Millennials vs. Gen X, and you've met Brett. So
the thing is, like, these people get on the show. I feel like we get their edited version, but everyone needs to remember they went through a casting process, so they have something to offer. Casting has their pick of the litter. They're not going to pick someone who sucks and put them on the show. Now, someone who might crack under pressure of the game or freeze with the cameras or be less articulate when they're nervous, that's one thing. But they had at least enough personality to get through the gauntlet of a casting session. So
yeah, and you know, to keep up my good segues here, my number 9, somebody who has a lot of trouble with the camera, I have Rick Devins.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah, he's terrible with the camera, but I think that Rick is in a bad spot, but I think Rick and Aurora, the reason I have them back to back and don't have them 10-11 is because like Rick can go home whenever everybody wants Rick to go home. Like, and if he starts being too stubborn and nobody can work with him, they get rid of him. But right now, Rick is not a threat. I mean, to get rid of Rick this week, all you're really doing is possibly evening the numbers up. If Rick goes home this week, like Rick is another one. He's never gonna create an army. He's just gonna be a part of someone's army.
Which was David's whole point about pilot and passenger.
Exactly. And Rick and Aurora are 2 passengers right now, and there's no reason to take down the passengers. Like there's no reason right now. So I have Rick at 9, and I'm, you know, Julie and Ron, I think, have a better chance of going home.
I mean, Julie, Devins, and Ron are my bottom 3 too, but I had Julie above Devins because of the edits. Devins' edit this week was just so bad in terms of making him look like a rational, emotional, bitter player that I can see us being prepared for his imminent downfall before Julie's. So I put Julie at 9 because she also got that stronger edit last week where she's the one who kind of gets the troops rallied up to vote out Joe. It's her decision. So we had some sense that Julie does have a capacity to make a move. So I had Julie at 9 and Devin's at 10 instead.
And then Ron at 11.
And then Ron at 11 because I think he's dead man walking. He can dodge the bullet if something crazy happens at Tribal Council. And like we've been talking about, someone else goes by circumstance. But I have Ron at the bottom.
Yeah, I have Ron at the bottom as well. So that puts Julie as my number 10. I just think Julie and Ron, they are the king and queen of the comma 6. And now the comma 6 is no more. And so, even if there's a vote split that comes up or who knows what's going to happen, I could see Julie going. I could see Ron going. I just think I could see both of them going before Rick because getting rid of Rick right now just like
makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
Do you have Ron at 11 or do you have someone else at 11?
I have Julie 9, Ron 10. I have Rick at 11. I think Rick is the one going home.
But yeah, I think the one thing that makes me hesitant about putting Rick or Ron at 11 like we did, which means maybe you're better off there, is if this next week's episode is so epic, does it really just result in Ron going home after all?
That's what I've been thinking. It's too easy for Julie and Ron to go home, right?
And then that's not really epic. I mean, maybe they go out in a way that you're not expecting. So maybe it's just a lot of pomp and circumstance, ultimately resulting in the result that was going to happen anyway. But if it is such a massively epic tribal council like they're hyping, it seems weird for Ron to be the victim. Or just
I was just going to say, did we all mess up? And like, is David about to get the boot out of nowhere?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I feel like one of those people like the David, the Aurora, the Wardog, the Julia, maybe one of them suddenly gets hit by the bullet.
Yeah. Now you got me paranoid. I didn't even think about that because I'm so used to these tribals being so overhyped.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're putting a lot of emphasis on the next Survivor, which doesn't always come to fruition.
Yeah. And like, I could totally see this being somehow Ron and Julie get their people back on their side. They have Rick. David decides I can't play with Wentworth anymore. And it's 4 Lauren, 4 Wentworth. They both play idols. 3 votes on Ron. Ron still goes home. But like, did you see all the idols getting played? It was insane.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
And we sit there as like way too big of Survivor fans and kind of like yawn and go back and blame your season for being the reason for the idol madness.
Yeah, that's on me. Sorry, guys.
That is on you. I mean, you have to remember. I mean, you were So when Gary found it, he found it right before he played it. But
yeah.
So did you know about that before you watched it, or like you didn't know anything
before I watched it? I mean, I knew it was in the game after I was voted out, and I found out about it as people had told me. Brandon had told us because he was part of the merge, so he knew about the idol. So even on the pre-jury trip, we knew about an idol. I mean, we knew about that. Yeah.
How cool was it as a huge fan when that first happened?
Well, we didn't know at the time that it was cool because we didn't know how revolutionary it would become. You know, you don't call World War I during the war because it's just a war. You don't know it's this epic big thing that's going to have a second World War. So when the idol happens in Guatemala, we just think like, oh, okay, there's something new you've done. The season before, they had introduced that Exile Island concept with Janu. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, that's the weird, quirky thing about our season was there's this like special Mayan trinket that gets you immunity. We had no idea it was going to be a literal game changer used in every season throughout.
Hashtag game changer.
Yeah, hashtag game changer. Exactly.
I just remember, maybe it's because my family was huge Gary fans. Which I don't know if that's an eye roll from you or if that's
no, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
No, I like Gary. I do.
Okay.
Gary Hawkins, landscaper. Great guy.
Yes, I love him. I didn't like Gary Hogan at all.
Yeah, no, not him though. Yeah.
No. I'm glad Amy hasn't murdered him yet. That's good. But when I think we loved Gary so much that when he was the one who found it, he was the one who played it. It was such an exciting moment. Like like literal cheering. Like I remember my mom and dad like screaming at a TV.
And he needed it too. So it was
exactly. Like it was perfect. It was him, and then Jamie goes home instead. And because the idol was so crappy back then, all it did was prolong his game by 1 vote and nothing cool really. Now when you rewatch it, it's not that cool.
Right. But it's like these kids who are 13, 14 rewatching Guatemala, like that's the idol. How boring. Yeah.
Yes. Well, exactly. When they've only watched seasons 30 through 38.
Right.
Which, by the way, like the 11 episode is better. You know what I mean? It's scary and it's cool. But now you look at like what it's become, and it's that was one guy found this tiny little thing that was gray in a gray.
Definitely not on the ground. Definitely not on the ground.
He finds it. He finds this little gray thing. plays it before the votes are even cast. And now there's like 3 idols, and we're being told that it's the craziest tribal because there's going to be 3 idols or 2 idols or 2 idols, and everybody else has half an idol. And instead of people's jobs, we're now getting how many immunity idols they have, or if they have an extra
Which
vote.
was a Twitter suggestion, by the way, from a fan.
Ah, there you go. I think that's cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's cool, but also like that's how different it is in the last 14 years.
We're removed from the humanity of who these people are outside of the game and more their role in the game, I guess.
Yeah. Which is crazy because now we know more about them outside of the game, and we just hate everything about everybody outside of the game.
Right.
We hate everyone. So Alexa, you put Rick at last mainly because of that, but we all have Julie down there too. I feel like this could be Julie's week where it's just like.
I think she got too strong an episode last week to go now because her episode last week was triumphant as opposed to Ron's, which was setting him up for a downfall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She's been pretty present.
Yeah, she won the immunity. She got little quips here and there about being from New York and doesn't know what she's doing here, and she peed in Central Park or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, now we get to the best part of the game, and Alexa, I already see your person.
I know. I put it in early.
I know. Well, again, Alexa's been like on a heater of this because she's doing terrible in the power ranking, so she just keeps putting that person. Brian, do you know what the Eliminator game is here for us or no?
I don't.
Okay.
Catch me up. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is fun. It's always fun for the survivors because you literally have no control over it. But hey, don't be the one to mess it up. So the Eliminator game, much like football pick'em, which you just admitted that you didn't play any sports. So
Sports ball. Got it.
Mm-hmm. But so what we do each week, you pick one person that you don't think is going to go home, and if that person goes home, you're out.
I'm in a survivor pool that does exactly this.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. And as it goes on, it gets harder because
you lose people. You can't pick the same person twice. You've already used them. Yet someone else went home. Yeah. So okay, I do get it, but I know it from survivor context, not from football.
Hey, that's perfect.
Yeah. So we had Troy Zan on, and we had to explain it as football. So yeah. But for this one, what's been interesting about this season is no one has gone home that any of us have picked. Literally, not one person that anyone has picked has gone home.
Okay, so you've never messed up. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Am I beholden to the ones the survivors have already picked? Do I have to pick from the remaining pool that other people have picked from?
Yeah. And what I'm saying,
weird pool.
Here's what the problem is here, Brian. Like I'm saying, like all of us are still in the game, but literally every single person that we have picked is still also in the game.
Oh,
so
okay.
Like our pool is down to like
getting smaller and smaller.
4 people.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is terrible because normally, like on another season, you might be able to say, like, I'm going to take Keith week 1. And then he goes home week 2 and you're feeling good because you've gotten somebody out of the way.
You always want to pick the person who goes home next week.
That exactly. Mm-hmm. This time we haven't picked somebody who's gone home in the last 7 weeks. So you cannot pick Ron. You cannot pick Aurora. You cannot pick Wentworth. You cannot pick Victoria. You cannot pick Lauren, and you cannot pick Gavin.
Damn, Gavin I was like, Gavin. Shoot, I was ignoring everything you said because I was like, I'll pick Gavin. So wait, I have to highlight. I can't pick Ron. I can't pick Wentworth. I can't pick Lauren. I can't pick Victoria. I can't pick Gavin. Is that what you said?
And you can't pick Aurora.
Oh, and Aurora. Okay.
Yep.
So I have to pick Julia, Wardog, David, Julie, or Devins.
Yep.
All my middle people. Oh boy. Yeah, boy. Okay. I'm gonna say it's not. It's funny. I mean, based on what I've ranked, I should pick Julia because she's the highest person I have left that I have not picked. But now I'm less confident than I was when I came in here.
And you don't want to be the one who ruins it.
I know. I can't.
No.
I mean, oh God. I don't think David is going home.
Okay. That's a good choice.
There we go. David's in there until David gets blindsided in this epic tribe.
Sorry, David. There's your death knell. Yeah.
It's been really fun to see how the survivors pick. Like when Sunday came on last season, or not last season, 2 seasons ago now, she like made sure to like really pick somebody who was like near the bottom and like like that's what Brendan did this season. Mm-hmm. And then Bradley, he picked Ron when Ron had the idol that he could only play in the first 2 episodes.
Right. Okay.
Last week, Bryce picked Gavin because Gavin was his number 1. So it's fun to see who takes the hero.
Gavin because he's like on his next calendar for 2020.
Oh God, the Zaddy calendar.
Love the calendar.
Are Brian, are you going to be trying to get on the Zaddy calendar?
I don't even know who needs to. I don't know. I don't even know where to start petitioning.
It's a full application process.
Okay. All right. He's got to troll my Instagram to see if I'm worthy.
Yeah, You got to get the Bradley sitting in the bed.
I know, with the hammock with like the bed sheet on him. I know, I've seen it.
Amazing.
Bradley.
That's what we need. Alexa, why don't you announce who you just picked and then explain why you did
Why? So I've been doing this for the past couple weeks. I put someone at the bottom, which is Rick, and now Rick is my choice for the Eliminator.
Oh.
And I don't
because you have that little confidence that your power rankings are right.
It's one part of me that I don't believe myself.
Okay.
I'm normally horrendous at this, so I'm just proud that I got this far. And also, there aren't many options left.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't take Lauren.
No, I think she's going to
take her. Mm-hmm. I've already took David. I thought that I was in the clear. I would have taken him, but I already took him. I don't know. I'm now going to contradict everything that I said, but I don't know. Ron and Julie looks like they're going home this week.
So you're Rick.
I am saying that Rick is going to be safe.
Okay.
So, and I'm totally screwed because I have the only people I can pick are Lauren, Wentworth, Rick, and Ron.
Oh, you are.
I am totally screwed.
That's rough.
Because you got two people who probably go a lot farther and two people who might go home tomorrow or Wednesday. Yeah.
Yes. And the problem is too, like, if I take Lauren this week and Ron doesn't go home, but Rick does, well, then I'm not going to take Ron next week because he'll probably go home. And now I'm down to like nobody, and I just need there to be – I need somebody to come in from Extinction Island immediately so I can pick them. Right. So I think I'm going to go on Team Alexa here, and I'm going to take Rick and hope that – I'm actually going to hope Julie goes home this week so I can take Ron next week because somehow Ron pulls the numbers.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Because, we are running out of people. This is we've all done a great job of avoiding people, but it's been insane how –
the people you've picked got a lot farther than you thought they would.
Keep going. I mean, I picked all the comma women were my first three picks. Are Julie, Julia, Victoria. I didn't take Aubrey because I figured Aubrey was going very far.
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of people did, and she might still.
Yeah.
And now Julie, Julia, Victoria, all still in the game. I took Aurora already. I took David already. Like, I didn't take Eric because I thought Eric was going to like the final six, and Eric goes home last week. Like,
right.
So we're waiting to hear from Vaughn. When we get Vaughn's, we'll also put that. Vaughn is somebody who he comes on every now and then to do podcasts. He normally dominates us in the fantasy games, although my fantasy team is completely intact still, Brian. I just want to read this off to you real quick. We did a snake draft.
Okay.
3 teams. The 3 leftover people went to Carl, right? From last season. He just gets the remnants.
Yeah, we just give the remnants is so we give the remnants.
Yeah. Well, the remnant also includes Victoria because I picked first in the last round, so there were 4 people left, and I took Ron, and I left Alexa and Vaughn both. They could both have Victoria. Neither one picked her. So Victoria somehow was on Carl's team, and Carl might have the winner. Yeah, but the team I picked: Wardog, Wentworth, Lauren, David, Ron. I mean,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I just gotta throw that out there. I want
that's
Brian.
Pretty solid. Yeah, I mean, all right. Ron is your weak link potentially, right?
Yeah, and last season, I was out when Christian went home. That's how bad mine was last season.
So, it's final like 7. He was 7th place or so.
He was 7th, and Gabby was 8. And I had literally Carl. I think I went Carl, Gabby, Christian. Those are my last 3 people in that
order. Sorry.
Brutal. But Alexa, do we have anything else, or do we want to just say Brian?
I think that was it. You have any final words, Brian?
No, this was fun, guys. This is exciting. I hope now I'm more invested in David staying this week.
Exactly. And make sure when David does stay, like if he does go home, we'll troll you, but make sure if he does
I know,
stay,
totally. Yes, of course. Yeah. Let me know.
Yeah.
And actually, if you guys are bored, if you have another 45 minutes and you're bored, check out on my Instagram. Eliza and I 8 years ago did a game show that never aired. It was a trivia/memory game show filmed for ABC. It was a whole pilot. And then it never aired. And then out of absolutely nowhere, we thought we would never see the footage and we're so bummed about it. Somehow on like a game show Reddit board, it was uploaded on YouTube. And someone from the Survivor Reddit saw it there, recognized Eliza, and was like, hey, Eliza's on a game show. And then someone was like, also, that's Brian from Guatemala.
My gosh.
It showed up on Reddit. And now Eliza and I like freaked out that we finally got to see the entire 48-minute episode that never aired. So it's us doing trivia together, and it's like a memory maze, and it's really cool. So my Instagram is @Brian Corridan, and I have the link in there. Check it out if you're bored. It's a fun watch, I think.
That's
this looks
amazing.
like just the photos look like a combination of Deal or No Deal and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Exactly. It's very much like that, except there's also an element of memory in the whole thing too.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
this is great.
the
I'm
YouTube
totally
link
gonna
is in my caption for it, I guess, is where the YouTube link. I hope that link still works. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's weird. It doesn't hyperlink. Well, anyway, you can
We'll find
find
it.
it there. You can find it. Yeah. It's
It's the
worth the
internet.
watch. Yeah.
That's really cool. I just love how Eliza keeps popping up. Like all of a sudden, like Eliza's going to be on The Amazing Race. Now Eliza's got this game show thing from 10 years ago.
She's hustling every day. A hustle.
And back to what we were just talking about though. There's like 13 and 14-year-olds who are probably like, who the hell's Eliza?
I know. How sad for them. She's a Survivor OG icon. Yeah.
Vanuatu. That's the top 5. That's it.
And her stick in 16.
Six stick in 16. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
she
God.
got a lot of love in what was it? Ghost Island. She had more air.
That's right.
Than half the cast.
She had more screen time than like Jenna and Chelsea combined.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Name dropping Chelsea on this podcast too. We never forget.
We
you know?
never forget.
Never forget. Purple Chelsea.
Yeah. Purple Chelsea. All right, Brian. Well, if you don't have anything else, Alexa's going to take us home. So if you got any last words,
No, thank you. This guy's awesome. Go to Alexa.
Yeah.
Alexa,
all right.
take us home.
I will take us home. All right. So we'll be back this Wednesday, a little after 9 p.m. Eastern, to go over our episode 8 ? That's what episode this is?
It's episode 8. Yeah. CBS is
always
calling it
get
episode
weird.
8.
Yeah. But okay. So it's episode 8. Episode 8 recap. And then we'll be back next Sunday probably for our prediction power rankings. But in the meantime, follow us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. We hit 4,600 subscribers on YouTube, which is super exciting. The number keeps climbing. Give us 5 stars on iTunes. And if you guys need to watch more trivia shows, make sure to go to Brian Corridan's Instagram and watch unaired reality TV show on Instagram. Thank you so much for coming on, Brian. We had a great time.
My pleasure. This was awesome, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.